Welcome to the Fight Like a Mother podcast. I am Cheryl Cardall, your host. You have landed in a wonderful community where we give non-judgmental support for parents raising kids with mental health and other neurodiverse challenges. My main goal is to provide resources and especially a soft place to land. Go find me on Instagram and join our awesome community of parents under my name, Cheryl Cardall. Now on with the episode. Welcome back to the Fight Like a Mother podcast. My topic today is one that is near and dear to my own heart because it is a huge part of my own healing journey and mental health care. And we are going to talk about the healing parts of nature and adventure and connection. And I have the perfect guest on today who I have been following for a really long time. I love her account so much. My guest today is Brittany Crane from Get Out There Girl. And Brittany, it's so fun to have you on here and to chat about this topic because you are like the queen bee of nature and adventure and connection with women. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me, Cheryl. I'm really excited to chat with you about all of this stuff. And I don't know about Queen Bee, about all that stuff. There's a lot of times where I get frustrated where I want to get outside even more, but I have 5 kids. And so, it's life and I get out as much as I can. And sometimes I wish I could get out more and sometimes it's just right, but I do my best.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes the kids are like, I don't want to go outside again. I don't want to do that. So, you're right. Like life sometimes gets in the way, but I love how you just prioritize it for your own life and for your own health, both physical and mental, I would imagine. So tell us a little bit how you got started doing what you do. Well, first tell us what you do and what Get Out There Girl is all about. And then tell us how you got going on that.
I run a women's adventure company is what I call it. It's a company that I set up to take women outdoors and to get them using their body, moving their body in nature and connecting with other women. I do things specifically for women. And I just find that there's a magic in that, getting women together, allowing them to connect in nature where we don't have our to-do list. We're not running errands. We're present, and nature's really good at that, at forcing you to be present. And so I love it. I love getting groups of women outside and just chatting with them and connecting with them and having real deep conversations with them. Women, I've learned crave connection and crave these good conversations that we don't want small talk. We're exhausted with small talk.
Yes.
And we really want to get to the heart of the issue, and we want to get to know people, and we want to know that we're not alone in our struggles and in our trials. And we want to know and see other people, and we want them to know and see us. And getting in nature where we're not surrounded by kids, pulling on our clothes, mommy, I need this, I want this. Or, maybe we have work or just all of the different distractions that keep us so busy in our everyday life. When you step out into nature and you say, go on a hike, you're forced to be present, and you're forced to put all of that on pause, and true conversations can happen. And it's awesome. So that's what I do. I take women outside and I let them talk and become friends. It's really fun. And to answer your question on how I got started is I learned how important that was for me. I think like most moms, I let myself go. I have 5 kids now. After I had my 3rd baby, I suffered from severe postpartum depression. And it was severe enough that I had suicidal thoughts. And when I finally opened up to my husband about how deep in despair I was, he was like, holy cow, like this is big. We need to get you some help. And so I got help. I got a wonderful therapist, and she taught me a lot of wonderful things. The main thing that she taught me was about self-compassion. And you and I am sure we'll talk about some self-compassion later today. Yes. But that changed my life. That changed me inward. And and so once I had those tools on changing my thought process and being kind to myself, I also got outside. I started going on more hikes, and I actually had an experience where I was in Moab, Utah, and God told me that I needed to get outside and play more.
Mm.
And I needed to just spend more time doing things that I loved. And so once I got that message from him, I was like, okay, I always love hiking. I like being outside. So I started prioritizing it, because suddenly it wasn't such a burden. Like, it wasn't me thinking, oh, I should be doing something with my kids, but instead I'm out hiking. Once God told me, that was like all that I needed to
That was
have
your
my experience. Like,
permission. Yeah.
that was my permission. Exactly. That was my permission, where I was like, okay, I trust God. I'm going to trust what he told me, and I'm going to test it. And I'm just going to get out in nature more. And so I did. And there was a complete revolution in me.
Mm.
I wish I could bring my husband on these interviews, because he always says the changes in me in the past, 8 years, he's like, it's amazing. He's like, it's been so wonderful. He's like, one of the best things in my life has been watching you blossom.
Mm.
And it was about two things: getting outside and being kind to myself. Those were the two catalysts that completely changed my life and gave me a zeal from life. I went from not wanting to live and thinking that the world would be a better place without me, to suddenly, like, I have this zeal for life, and I'm grateful for every day, and I just want to live every day to the fullest. And it's not because I'm scared and fearful. It's because I genuinely love life.
Mm.
And I feel it. And there's so much that I want to do and experience and see. Um, and nature is amazing. Nature is such a gift that I feel God has given us. And when we get stuck in our routine and in our busy lives, we miss out on that gift. And I feel like he's really given it to us. Um, and for me, I've used it in my mental health journey the most.
Yes. It's a huge part of my own mental health journey as well. I mean, my husband will say, you need to get into the mountains. And literally, as we're driving up the canyon, he's like, I can almost see it melt away. The hardships and the struggles and my stress. He's like, that my soul craves that as much as it does like air. Um, so I'm with you on that. And so what I would say is, you got that message from God that you needed to play more. You needed to get outside. You needed to do that. And it's so interesting because my podcast actually this week that we're recording is on play and on fun and how that important that is for our mental health. And I'm getting so many messages from women that are like, I don't know how to play. I don't feel like I have permission to do that. I don't have time. It's not productive. It's a waste of time. So let's talk to those women for a minute who don't feel that permission, who haven't heard that message from God. What would you say to them to give them permission to see the benefits, to get into nature? If that's not their thing, to find another way to release and to play and to have fun. What would you say to them?
Oh gosh, I'm getting emotional just listening to you talk about that woman. Like, I feel like first I would want to give her a hug,
Mm-hmm.
because she's probably very overwhelmed, and she's probably doing everything for everybody else.
Well, and this is multiple women that are saying this. So this is not just one woman. This is, if 10 women are messaging me this, there's hundreds more.
Yeah,
So,
so many more.
yes.
And I was that woman. That
Mm-hmm.
was me. And I thought that I needed to be there 100% of the time for my kids. And I thought I needed to show up for everybody all the
Right.
time, doing everything. And and I thought that if I sacrificed myself, then I would that was what my family needed. They needed me to sacrifice, and every time that I took time away from them was selfish, and they were suffering because of it. And so that was me. That was 100% me. But I watched as the light in my eyes disappeared,
Mm-hmm.
and my zeal for life left, right? and not that caring for my family wasn't what I needed.
Right.
It I just I needed that spark in me. I needed that play. I needed that time to spend on me. And it, we've heard this 100 times. You can't pour from an empty cup. And that's what hobbies do for you.
Hmm.
My marriage has benefited so much from me having hobbies. And it's so funny to think about, like, my marriage has benefited by me spending time away from my husband. But it's true. It's very true. Like, I'm more of a whole person because I have my interests, and I have my hobbies, and I have my things and my passions that make it so that when I serve my family, or when I'm with my husband, I have more of me to give.
Yes.
I'm happier, I'm fuller, I have more light to shine on them because I've taken time for me. And so that's what I would say to these women who are in the depths of it. They're doing everything. They have so many demands, and they're probably exhausted
Mhm.
doing all of them. Is try it. Try it, and you might not be a believer at first, but give it a chance. Schedule something for you, and try different things. I think I would that would be advice I would give you too, is try different things. There might be something that lights you up, and there might be something that you're like, that worked for my neighbor or my best friend, but that doesn't work for me.
Right.
You've got to find what lights you up and what fills your cup. And that might be hiking, that might be rock climbing, that might be biking, that might be shopping, that might be redecorating, that might be, a DIY project. There's so many different things that you could use, as a hobby to fill your cup. And I would just say experiment. Just try it and see how it fills you up, because I can guarantee it does.
Yeah, I
And if
can
it's
guarantee.
not, then you're not doing the right thing.
Yes, yes. And I can guarantee that feeling that light come back, it will change your life, and you will have things to look forward to. I think that's a lot of life. We just, uh, and I know a lot of my families in my community are dealing with really tough issues in their families. They're dealing with really hard mental health things, but staying in the overwhelm, and this is from personal experience, and the staying in bed, or all of those things, staying in the dark, it's not serving your family, and it's not serving you. And so even if it's, what, it kind of sounds fun to go on a drive up the canyon. I don't know, maybe you don't even have to get out of your car, but you start with something simple like that. And my guess is you're going to want to get out of your car and see the beauty. So I love how you said, first of all, you'd want to give these women a hug. And I think it starts with that compassion, like you talked about, and that self-compassion, which we're really not very good at sometimes. And so talk about that for a minute. How does that self-compassion play into this ability to get outside, to do what lights you up?
Well, I think it gets you stuck in shame, honestly,
Mhm.
because just thinking about these women who might feel stuck right now and feel like they can't take time away, and they don't have time for hobbies because their family needs them too much, or they have too many things asked of them right now. Um, then you think about, like, oh, they probably also feel bad for losing themselves.
Yeah.
We talk about that a lot as moms, like losing yourself as a mom, forgetting who you are, and having that time period, but we all go through it.
Yes.
I don't know a mom who hasn't lost herself in motherhood, who hasn't for some period of time swallowed up her needs for her kids' needs, right? Um, or or some sort of that, where
Mhm.
she's forgotten who she is, and she's lost that light for a little bit. Um, and that's okay. I think that's part of being human, and it's very natural. And I think it's actually a sign that you are a really good mom, and that you're trying to give your family everything. Um, And so instead of getting stuck in that and feeling shame and feeling bad that you've lost that light or you've let that light dim, um, instead of feeling bad about that, just acknowledge it and realize that, I'm not the only one. I didn't do anything wrong. I was doing my best. And now I'm going to try to get that light back and making that decision. And that is self-compassion right there. You see something that you did wrong or something that you would like to change or fix, you acknowledge it, and then you see that you're a human and you're not capable of perfection. Nobody is capable of perfection, right? And instead of guilt tripping yourself or feeling bad about it or piling on these excuses, you take accountability for it. You give yourself a hug and you say something to yourself that you would tell your best friend. That's all self-compassion is it's treating yourself like your best friend. And then you move on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing the changes that that can have and how like the physical weight that it releases from you when you are accountable for something that you did, like say yelling at your kids. We all yell at our kids. They all push our buttons to some point that we've lost our temper, right? We've lost our patience with one of our kids at some point in our parenting journey. And if instead of excusing it or feeling shame for it or feeling like a bad mom and beating yourself up for it, instead you say, okay, yeah, I lost my temper. You acknowledge it, right? Then you say, well, why would I lose my patience on them? That's not what I want to do. I don't want to get in that habit of losing my patience or yelling, or maybe I'm in that habit and I don't want to keep it. So then I take a step back and I look at myself like somebody else would see me. And that's a wonderful, beautiful thing to be able to do is to step back and to see yourself objectively. And you're like, okay, well, actually, I had a really hard day. I had this, I had X, Y, and Z today that I was running around crazy. I had this stress. I had lack of sleep last night. My kid asked for the same thing 10 times, was pulling on my shirt. The baby was crying in the background. Like I was very overstimulated. You know what I mean? Like you just take take a step back and you look at the big picture. And then once you see that big picture, you're like, oh, of course. Like
Right.
that I'm not a bad person. I was overstimulated and exhausted and I lost it. And then once you allow some compassion to come in, you're like, yeah, I'm human. That would turn anybody, that would, you know, poke anybody's buttons. And then you apply the compassion and then you say, ah, okay, I don't want to do that again though. So next time, what could I do to not get me to that point where I lose my temper with my kids? What kind of things could I do? Well, I could probably use some self-care time. I
Mm-hmm.
could probably use some quiet time where I'm not overstimulated. Or next time I can sense some cues that I'm getting overstimulated. Maybe I step into my room and take 10 deep breaths. Or maybe whatever it is, you, but that's how self-compassion works is it actually gets you to change and it gets you motivated to become the person that you want to be through kindness.
Yeah.
And it's so wonderful and life-changing, and not only does it change your life but it changes your relationships with others because that burden is lifted from yourself. You treat yourself better and then you start treating other people better too.
Yes, I totally agree. There's a quote that I love that says, "Don't let a bad moment make you convince you that you're a bad mom."
Oh, I
Because
love
we all have those bad moments and we're human. We are put in these situations with these people with all these needs demanding things from us all the time. And of course we're going to get, like you said, overstimulated or lose our patience or things like that. And we're just human and we're not going to do it right all the time. And relationships are messy
that.
and
Hmm.
life is messy and that's okay. And I love that we change best through kindness to ourselves rather than shaming ourselves or shoulding all over ourselves, that I shouldn't have done that. I should be doing this instead. And I just love that. And I love that maybe one of the things we need to look at when we are in that, maybe we're chronically impatient with our kids. Maybe we're just like, and we're not feeling like we're that mom that we want to be. Look at what we need to do to get outside of ourselves, to get outside in nature, to to light that light inside of us again. So I
Yep.
think it all is so intertwined. Like, okay, why am I chronically yelling at my kids or impatient with my kids or feeling like this is not the life I want? If we're feeling that, then what do we do, Brittany?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many women who are constantly looking for the next vacation, the next
Hmm.
break,
Hmm.
right? And they're okay while they're on vacation, and then they're dreading to go back home.
Yes,
And they're like, oh, okay, when can I plan the next girls' trip? When can I plan the next vacation? When can I have the next release? And that's a hard way to live.
for sure.
And and you want to get to the place where you enjoy your everyday life, where vacations are wonderful and fun, but you don't need to escape to be
Right. You
happy.
don't need to run away. Yeah.
You don't need to run away. And for me, the only way that I found that is through being kind to myself, because life is hard. And once I acknowledged being a mom of 5 kids is crazy taxing, it is
It
so
is.
hard.
I'm a mom of
When,
five too, so I get it.
yeah, just acknowledging that fact has a lot of power in it.
Hmm.
Just acknowledging the fact that what we do as women is a lot. Once you acknowledge that fact, I feel like that opens up the door of compassion where you're like, okay, yeah, I do a lot. That feels good to acknowledge the fact that I do a lot. That validation comes, and then you're ready for the next step.
Hmm.
Okay, well, what because it is hard, what do I need? What would I tell my best friend if I saw my best friend in this situation where she just wanted to escape life constantly and she was overwhelmed with her life? What would I tell her? I like, yeah, book the trip to Mexico, but also when you come back from Mexico, what are you going to do?
Hmm.
And I would tell her, yeah, I would like, what can you do on a daily basis to make sure that your needs are taken care of? What kind of things do you want to play? How do you want to play? How do you want to do your self-care? What looks right for you? And I would think about what I would tell my best friend, and then I would tell myself that.
Yes.
And because sometimes it is tricky to be like, okay, well, Brittany, what do you need? But instead I'll be like, okay, well, my best friend's name is Tiffany. So I would put, what would I tell Tiffany? And then I would tell myself that. That's how I started my self-compassion journey, is I just, and that's what I would tell any woman. Think about your best friend. What would you tell her in a hard situation if she was going through what you're going through? If she felt like she was drowning with 2 little kids, what would you tell her? What advice would you give her? And then give that advice to yourself.
Yes, I love that. So, as you have taken these women on these adventures, which I love your adventures. I mean, you took them on a dog sledding adventure, and you're getting ready to go this summer on a backpacking adventure, right?
Yeah.
Just so fun. And so, what do you see the value for women getting into nature on their mental health? What value do you find for yourself and for these women? Like, how does it boost your mood?
Oh man. So there's the science behind it, right? That
Hmm.
I won't really get into, but just the science of moving your body in the fresh air, outside of nature. Um, the endorphins that come, the dopamine hit, right? Like all of the chemicals that are released in your brain and in your body. That happens naturally. Um, but every time, so I won't be able to do this on my Teton trip because we won't have cell service. But every time I go on a retreat, I call my husband the first or the second night, and I just am bursting. And I
Mm,
just tell him it's happening again. And I love what I do. Thank you for taking care of the kids at home so that I can come do this with these women and watch this magic happens.
yeah.
And I'm telling you, Cheryl, every retreat, every time I gather women, whether it's on just a local hike or, a weekend retreat, the magic happens. And it's because those chemicals are releasing in our brain. It lets down some walls. Um, but also our to-do list, like I mentioned before, they're gone.
Mhm.
You can't be backpacking in the Tetons and thinking about your to-do list. Um, the women that have gone on that trip with me, and really all of my retreats, the feedback that I get is that each trip is life-changing.
Mm,
And I think part of it is the quietness, the stillness that we don't typically get as women at home.
right.
We have to go searching for that stillness at home. And it's probably very short lived if we
Mhm.
find it.
Mhm.
And then our phones are nearby. And so we can pick up our phone and start scrolling. Or we're like, oh, if you're a religious person, you should be doing some scripture study or something. And so there's constantly something that we should be doing. But when you're outside and all of those distractions are removed, and instead, sitting next to you is this amazing woman who wants to connect. Wow. Like the magic just naturally happens. Women are amazing. We are deep, deep thinkers. And we're so full of love and we want to share that love freely. And so when you're out in nature with other women who want to share that love freely, man, it's like getting a big giant bear hug.
Yeah.
Um, it just fills your soul with joy and with this sense that you can't get at home. And I mean you can in other ways, from your family and different things, but it's different when you're alone with your thoughts, you've had quiet time to think and to get in touch with your soul and what your soul is really asking for and craving, because sometimes in life we get so busy that we don't take time to look at where we are and see if our life aligns with our goals and with our vision and our morals and what we really want out of life. A lot of times we get off track, and it's not until we get in that quiet stillness in nature where we're like, oh, I'm actually off track, and this is what I can do to get back on track. And you add that compassion where you're not beating yourself up for getting off track. You just acknowledge it and then make a plan to get back on track, because now you've had some time to think. You know what's really important and you're in tune with your feelings and your emotions, and you make a plan to stay in a situation like that, stay in that zen mode, or know how to get back to that zen mode when
Yes.
life gets overstimulating again, because it will.
Yeah,
It will.
it will for sure. So what I'm hearing you say is take the time to create the life that you want. It's not
Yes.
just letting life happen to you. It's being intentional at creating the life you want. And maybe women aren't in a position to come to one of your retreats. They're not in local, they're not able to do that. That doesn't sound like their kind of thing. So, what would you say on a day-to-day basis to help create that kind of life, that kind of zen? What would you say to women to say, okay, I can't do the retreat, but what can I do on a regular basis to do that?
I love that question. I think the simplest form of that would just be to do something every single day that you look forward to.
Hmm.
Gratitude is a huge piece of our mental health, right? And and just having something that you look forward to every single day, and then completing it, doing that thing that you look forward to, and then looking back with gratitude for that thing that you did. So maybe you can't go to the spa every day, which I honestly believe, even if we went to the spa every single day, our problems wouldn't go away. We would still
Absolutely.
get
Yes.
overstimulated. We would still snap at our kids. We can't, that does a vacation every month won't solve our problems.
Right.
We have to learn how to do it every single day, right? How to live with it every single day. And I really think finding something that you look forward to every single day, make things happen. That's been my motto. I bought a journal probably 8 years ago that says make things happen on the cover, and that the power that we have in ourselves to create the life that we want is miraculous. Um, there are situations that are tricky. Being a mom of younger kids is trickier than being a mom of, an empty nester, or having your kids all grown or be teenagers and able to buckle themselves all in their car seats. Or, you know what I mean? Like there are stages of life, and things are easier in certain stages.
I
But it's
think they get different. I
very,
think
yes.
they're different because I know some families, teenagers are way harder than little kids. So I think it's just very different, but I agree with you. Like, even in the different ages and stages, like we can still find things that we can look forward to.
Yeah,
So I love that.
I've got teenagers and I've got a baby.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you right now, the teenagers are not easier. They take care of themselves physically easier. Like I don't have to take care of them and
Right.
prepare all of their meals. And so that part of the aspect is I'm not physically needed as much. I have more freedom to leave the house when I want to, that kind of thing with teenagers. Um, but man, emotionally and mentally, my teenagers are kicking my butt. Like my
Amen.
baby, yeah, my baby, she throws a little temper tantrum, or she has a little fit and she cries. It's so much easier to solve her needs
Yes.
than my older kids. So 100%. But yeah, doing something every single day in any stage of life that you're in that you can look forward to and fill your cup with, and then acknowledging the fact of don't put yourself in victim mode. Be like, ugh, I just got this one thing today that doesn't really do that much. It's not that big of a deal. No, like pick that one thing and then be grateful for that one thing.
Mhm.
Sometimes that one thing for me is a shower, and that's the thing that I picked. And then that's the thing that I'm grateful for. Sometimes it's going to the grocery store by myself. Now, that could be looked at as a chore, right? But if I look forward to it, it's quiet time. I'm finding things that are good about it. I'm not going to have to be asked 10 times at the grocery store for treats or something, and I'm going to have to say no to. I'm going by myself. Anyway, you look for things to look forward to, and then you look back with gratitude for those things, whatever those things are, and you get in the pattern of that. Then eventually the bigger things can come. Eventually, you can go on a weekend getaway with friends. Eventually, you can come on a retreat but it's the daily things that add up the most.
Well, and I think just like recognizing that those things to look forward to just aren't going to happen. You're going to have to carve out the time. You're, like we said, you're the creator of your life. And so you're going to have to decide what those are and make it happen, even if it's for 5 minutes. When we were talking about play on the podcast, Ashlyn said that she encourages her women to start with 5 minutes. 5 minutes of play, whether that's singing in the car, going for a walk and seeing something beautiful, or dancing with your kids in the kitchen or something. And I think all of us can find 5 minutes.
Yep.
I think that's the thing, is we think it has to be some big thing. Like you said, it doesn't have to be a trip to the spa on the regular. It can be, you know, washing your face with a yummy smelling face wash, or I mean, just that 5 minutes of something that you look forward to, like you said, I think is so important. I was going to say this last weekend was my birthday weekend, and we rented an RV and we went down to southern Utah so that we could kayak and paddleboard and play in the water. And I'm telling you, the anticipation of that was almost as fun as the actual event. And so that was kind of our form of adventure. We went hiking in Snow Canyon. It was just beautiful, and it totally filled my reserves. Let's talk for a minute about that adventure piece that you have found is magic for women. Why do you think adventure is maybe one of those key pieces that we don't think about very much? Because sometimes as moms, we're like, adventure? What's that? Why would I need to seek that out? So let's talk about that, because I think you found this little key piece sometimes that's missing in our lives.
Yeah, yeah. So again, to go back to the science of it, at first I just knew that it worked, and I saw it happen in me, and then I saw it happen in hundreds of women. And so then I went and was like, why does this work every single time?
Right.
And so what I found was the science behind it. And what happens when you do an adventure, you get a little bit of adrenaline, but it's not to the point where you go to fight, freeze, right? Fight. What are the three?
Fight, flight,
Fight or flight
freeze.
or freeze. There you go. Thanks, Cheryl. Fight, fight, or freeze. Freeze. Don't say that 10 times fast. So you're not to that point where you're handicapped, right? Like you're like frozen. I can't move on. That's when you know you've gone too far in your adventure, when you're frozen. But if you go before that, if you go
Just
to
before.
the step before you freeze, and you do something outside of your comfort zone, you do something brave, something that you are nervous about, you are a little bit scared of, and then you do it. Oh my gosh, the sense of accomplishment that comes, the endorphins that your body releases afterwards, and then the mental health gain of I just did something hard. I
Right.
just did something that stretched me that I wouldn't do on a normal basis. That is huge because now next time I have to do something hard, I look back to this other time where like I went rappelling. Rappelling is my perfect example of this because it's scary walking off a cliff,
Drop.
right?
Yes.
Like, yes, it's very scary and it is not natural at all for anybody. And for me still every single time I rappel, I still get nervous those first few steps.
Mhm.
And I think that's a good thing because you want a little bit of that adrenaline. You want some of that, like, okay, this is tricky. This is not natural, but I'm doing it. I'm brave. I'm going through all of the safety things in my head. I know that I can trust. And then I reapply that later in life in another scenario where I'm like, okay, I look at this like repelling. I'm a little bit nervous for this scenario. I'm a little bit nervous for this situation, but I'm going to be brave. I look at all my safeties that are set up for me to succeed, and I'm going to take the plunge. I'm going to go for it. And that's what adventure unlocks for us. It not only releases those chemicals, but it gives us this sense of accomplishment that I can do hard things. And we all need to be reminded of that all the time. Constantly, we need to be reminded of the fact that we can do hard things. Our kids need to be reminded of it. We need to be reminded of it. You're never too old to be reminded that you can do something that you're nervous for and do it anyway.
Yeah. And I think what a sense of accomplishment at the end when you're like, I just did that thing. I just did that thing that I was scared about. I mean, that's such a sense of accomplishment and like feeling proud of yourself. And how many times as moms do we have that sense? Not all that often, because it
And you
just,
can,
go ahead.
yeah, you can relive that moment
Yes.
forever where you're like, oh my gosh, remember that time that I rappelled off that cliff? Or remember that time that I went on that really scary roller coaster and I was terrified, but I did it anyway. Um, like you come, soon as you remember that, all of those emotions actually come back, that sense of accomplishment. You feel it again.
Mhm.
And like you said, you need that. And it's not something that you get on a daily basis as a mom.
Yes. Well, I just love this. I love that. I love the self-compassion piece that you brought into this because I think sometimes we think, why would I need self-compassion to talk about going into nature and adventure and play? And I think it's because sometimes we don't think we're worth taking that time. Sometimes we think I have to clean the bathrooms, I have to do the dishes, I have to get everything perfect before I can give myself permission to play. And guess what? You'll never get out there because the house will never be perfect and the kids will never be all happy. And so I think that self-compassion piece is, you know what? I deserve to create the life that I want, even if doesn't look perfect at home. I love
Yep.
that so much. And I think that's the piece that sometimes we're missing when we think, oh, I really should take care of myself better. I really do love getting into nature. I really do love hiking or whatever it is, but I've got too much to do. I've got to be productive. So I just,
There will never be enough time to put it in. If you wait for it, the time will never line up perfectly. you need to make the time. You need to make
Yeah.
things happen. The things that you want, you've got to prioritize it.
Yeah. Because the bathroom will still be there. The dishes will still be there. The
Yep.
kids will still be there. You know.
You know what? A fun part of that I've seen from me doing that in my life is I used to hate to leave my kids with my husband because I didn't want to ask of him, and I was worried if the kids were going to be safe or if he was going to pay attention to everything. And I'm a control freak, and so I'm like, well, what if they're late to dance lessons, or what if he makes them a bad dinner and it's not healthy and they don't eat any vegetables, or I just am controlling. And so I'm like, what if he doesn't do their bedtime the right way? But it's been really wonderful to see my husband blossom as a dad because I've taken time to leave them and go fill up my cup. And then it allows him the chance to step in and be the awesome dad that he is. And my kids can see, oh, mom's out taking care of her. Dad's here to take care of us. He's capable, and
Yeah.
things look different, and that's okay. And that's been a good lesson for me to learn too, is that things look different when dad's in charge than when mom's in charge.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And I've thought so often, what am I teaching my kids, my daughters specifically? Do I want my daughters to grow up thinking that they have to self-sacrifice and be miserable to be a mom? Is that part of motherhood? Is being miserable and staying home all the time and letting that light dim in your eyes? If that's what motherhood looks like, they're not going to want to be moms.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so I need to show them how awesome being a mom is and can be. And that's my job. That's what my example can do, is I want my daughters to grow up being excited to be an adult woman. I want them to be excited to have kids and to love on those little kids and as they grow up, and also to still have her own hobbies.
Mm-hmm.
And I want my sons to know that their wife deserves that. That soon as they have kids, the woman that they fell in love with isn't going to go away, and she doesn't need to go away. That she can have her own hobbies, and that they need to step in and help encourage her to have those hobbies. And
Well, and it
so
also gives your sons permission to do the same for themselves. Look, my mom, and I would guess your husband too, have their hobbies, and it makes them happy. I mean, my kids would say when I come home from hiking or going on a little weekend trip or whatever, you're happier,
mm-hmm.
And I think giving them that permission, and even like teaching them when they're this age to say, I can see you're having a hard time. Let's figure out something that you want to go do that would fill your cup. I mean, what a powerful lesson to teach.
Yep. And it's up to us to teach it to them. The world isn't going to teach that to them. We need to set the example and show them.
Yes, I agree. I agree so much. Do you have any last words of wisdom or any last things you want to say that you haven't said yet?
I have a couple spots left in my Teton backpacking
Awesome.
trip, if anybody wants to join me. Other than that, follow me on Instagram is where I'm most active, but I do something every single month. So I do a hike or some type of local activity, and then I do a couple retreats a year too.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. I think it's so vital for us as women to have those things that fill us up. And I will promote getting outside, even if you don't think it's your thing. Go for a walk in the sunshine. Go sit on the park bench and watch kids play.
Mm-hmm.
But even if you don't think nature is your thing, like, get outside because it's so good for us, so good for our mental health.
Get that fresh air.
Yes, and that vitamin D, so important. So thank you, Brittany, for being here. And I just appreciate you sharing your message with us so much.
Thanks for having me, Cheryl.